I'm Peter, and welcome to Waking from the Fire, my podcast. If you're watching this video, that's great. If you're listening, that's great too. But if you want to watch the video, you can catch it on Spotify, and you could also catch it on my website, peterkofitsis.com. If you can't spell that, I understand. It took me a couple of years to figure it out as well. But anyway, you're here, and that's the important thing. And now, I'm sure you saw the title. Maybe that's what attracted you to this podcast about why you can't lose weight. Now, I don't mean to be presumptuous. I don't know you. There's a good chance that we don't know each other. So how can I possibly know why you can't lose weight? Well, I don't know exactly, but what I can do is generalize. And sometimes generalizing, there is a benefit to it. So hear me out. For almost 25 years, I've been a nutritionist. And I learned a lot in nutrition school, but I learned so much more working with people one-on-one like we're doing here now. Even though you're not here with me live, I look at it that way because I feel like I'm talking to you. And what I've observed with people is the number one reason that they cannot lose weight is not because they're weak or they lack willpower or they're lazy or they're not smart enough, or that people are better than them, or they can't afford the proper trainer or nutritionist or gym or any of the other excuses. Now, there's no judgment there. I make excuses in parts of my life when something's very difficult for me to do. For me personally, I made a connection very early on in life that if I ate a certain way, now I can't say it was very early on. What I should say, let me back up, is really say I've always been drawn to the natural. Now, my kids think I'm not being completely truthful, but I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never done a drug. I drink in moderation, and I don't engage in any other behaviors. And not because I'm amazing. I don't engage in other harmful behaviors, I'll say. At least to my knowledge. And not because I'm amazing. I've just been connected to a natural world. It just makes sense to me. When I played college football, I was at least 65, maybe 75 pounds heavier than I am now. I didn't really track my weight because it just felt so terrible. I'd step on a scale and just would be shocked. And I wouldn't step on a scale unless I absolutely had to. I played football at the time and they did weigh us. That's why I have a sense of what I weighed. Now, why couldn't I lose weight back then? Well, one of the number one reasons, now I'm going to talk about objective and subjective. One of the number one reasons I've learned as a nutritionist in over 25 years working with thousands of people why people don't lose weight is they do not know, now listen to this, it might make sense to you. They do not know how much they should be eating to lose weight. That's objective. That's a number. And that number is called BMR, Basal Metabolic Rate. Now, have you ever heard of that before? If you have, I'm impressed. If you haven't, I'm not surprised. Basal Metabolic Rate is how many calories you and I should be eating to maintain our weight. How many calories it takes for us to maintain our weight. Now, if you're like most people in the world, and this is a worldwide phenomenon, that people are overweight around the world and want to lose weight. You want to lose weight. So how do you lose weight? You could either eat less than those calories, or you can exercise more than calories that you take in. You could burn more calories than you take in. It's a mathematical. I'm not a math guy. I get it if you're feeling some pain right now, but bear with me. Trust me, this is going to be worth it. So that's pretty simple, right? So BMR, Basal Metabolic Rate. You figure it out. You can go to my old website, peterkfitness.com. Right on the homepage, you don't have to click on anything, subscribe to anything. You type in your age, height, weight, activity level, and you get that number. Let's say that number is 1,500 calories a day. If you eat 1,500 calories a day, then you will maintain your weight. And now you might be saying, well, Peter, I don't care. I want to lose weight. And there are people, maybe you're one of them, that want to gain weight. So what do? You eat less than 1,500 calories a day. Now, you might be saying, if you have any idea of the calories, saying, Peter, 1,500 calories, there's no way that's enough calories for me. A Whopper could be 1,000 calories depending on how many condiments and additives you're putting onto it. And I mentioned Whopper because I grew up on them. I grew up on fast food, being raised by a single mother who didn't have time to cook. So that doesn't seem like a lot of food, but I want you to have faith. If you're eating great quality food, and I'll talk about that a little bit going forward or in a few seconds, if you eat great quality food, it is a lot of food. So, number one, you want to lose weight, figure out how much you should be eating to lose that weight. I know that makes sense. That's BMR. Now, just told you how to do it. You can go to my old website, peterkfitness.com, or you can do any Google search and come up with it. It's just a mathematical formula. It's not perfect, but I'll tell you this. In 25 years, any of my clients, my health coaching clients, who have figured out their BMR and have tracked everything they eat for 2 weeks have lost weight. It has never not happened. And that I hope you find very encouraging, because you can lose weight. Maybe you've lost weight in the past and you've gained it back. And maybe you've gained more. Has that happened to you? You're not alone. Over 90% of people who start a diet lose weight, then gain the weight back, and very often they gain more, and that's because they affect their metabolism through the diet. The diets are usually starvation diets. They're very low calorie diets, whether it's high protein, high carbohydrate, low protein, whatever it is, low fat, high fat, it doesn't matter. If you look at most diets throughout history that we've been recording them, most of them are calorie deprival diets, meaning you're eating far less, but they're not sustainable. And we know that. And I'm not bashing anyone. I'm not judging anyone. We just know that at this point, we could agree, hopefully on this, is that diets don't work. So what does work? Objectively, knowing the number of calories you should be eating. That's number one. And number two, tracking those calories. Now, this is where I lose a lot of people. First of all, they hate math, so they don't want to figure out how many calories. And they certainly don't want to sit down with an app, because there's these free apps like MyFitnessPal, and figure out how many calories they've eaten and type in every single thing they eat. If you're not willing to do that, I'll just tell you this, and this is not a threat, this is an observation, you probably will not lose weight. Or if you lose weight, there is a chance that you'll gain it back, like my clients who have gone that route. And again, my clients and my friends, including family, who have figured out how many calories they should eat and track their food, always lose weight. Something else always incredible happens. A couple of things happen that are incredible. People realize, my God, I wasn't eating as healthy as I thought. One of the things I hear most from people is, Peter, can you help me lose weight? I don't know why I'm not losing weight, because I eat pretty healthy. Again, no judgment, but is that really true? And so I asked them, how do you know you're eating healthy? And they start telling me all the healthy things they eat. Wonderful, good for them. And then I say, do you know how many calories you're eating? Are you tracking your calories? And almost all of them, 99.9% of the time, no. Or I've done it in the past and I haven't stuck to it. Okay, so I just gave you the two number one secrets to losing weight. Know how many calories you should be eating, and then track your food. That's objective. And to me, that makes sense. I guess when I was a younger nutritionist, that made sense. My God, I'm going to give people this information. It's going to change their lives. They're going to lose weight, and then they're on to the next thing, and they'll overcome the next challenge or achieve the next goal that they want in life. They'll be done with weight for the rest of their lives. Well, guess what? It doesn't happen. And my question is why? Before I started questioning why, so as a young nutritionist, I would give people these diets, show them how to eat, how to track, how much to eat, etc. And they would do it for a week, a month, 3 months, and almost always they would gain the weight back. And I would take that personally. But before I took it personally, I would, and I didn't know this comes from the work I've done regarding the trauma from my childhood, is I would say to that person, I wouldn't say it to them, right? I would think, well, they're just lazy. They're not willing to do it. They're not smart enough. I would project onto them all the excuses that they probably had for themselves. Where did those judgments come from? They came from me, my own low self-worth, my own feelings of inadequacy. If I was a better health coach, they probably would have lost weight. If I was a better nutritionist, they would have stuck to their diet. It must be something with me. But I don't want to admit that because that hurts me. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to project onto you, or I'm going to project onto that person and say, it's their fault. They didn't do this, etc., etc. And that's what I've experienced. Unfortunately, many of us do. We set a goal. We want to do something really wonderful. We fail at it. We might feel bad about it. And then we place that blame onto something else. Oh, the diet didn't work. The nutritionist wasn't good enough. I didn't have enough time. That's when the excuses come in. And if there's judgments around that, then that's a pretty good indication, in my experience, in my humble experience, that there might be something deeper going on for you like there was for me. And that can go back to childhood trauma. So what I really want to stress with you here is, and I've been doing this for a long time, going around the world speaking to people about eating healthy, not just losing weight, but being healthy, really. Because for me, I know it's so much more. And I should have said this earlier because you could have turned this off already when I said count your calories. Because you're like, seriously, Peter? That's the secret ingredient? That's the magic bullet you're going to give me? Well, I'll tell you this, the most successful people do the simple things that unsuccessful people are not willing to do. I'll say that again. The most successful people do the things that unsuccessful people are not willing to do. That's not a judgment, that's an observation. So they do little things like find out how many calories they should be eating, and then they track their calories. And now that might work for you. You could be done and that's it. But here's what happens. Here's what I observe. And here's where the subjective comes in. I give people, like I said, these great diets. I know if you eat the way I share with you, you'll be eating like the healthiest people in the world. You will lose weight, but more importantly, you will decrease your risk of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, you name the disease, autoimmune, Parkinson's, MS, you name it. High blood pressure. Did I mention everything? You name it, eating better will affect what the fact of you expressing, because most of us have genes for certain diseases. Whether that gene will be expressed is dependent on lifestyle factors. One of those lifestyle factors is the food that we eat. And now this is scientifically proven. We know now that cancer genetics only accounts for 5% of cancers. That's encouraging because it means that you and I can do something about it. So let me back up and let me get very focused here. Let me get laser focused. Let's say you're working with me, you're my client. I showed you how many calories you should be eating, and I showed you how to track your calories. And I showed you that if you eat 300 to 500 calories less than your BMR, you'll lose weight, guaranteed. I've never not seen it happen. You're excited. You leave my office and you go home, you start to do this, and you stop. You don't eat the way we decided you should eat. You don't track your calories. This is the moment of why. This could be an incredible moment in your weight journey to achieving and maintaining a healthy weight. Why do I say that? Because you have a goal. You want to lose weight, and maybe you want those other things too. You want to prevent disease. Maybe you just want to look good in your clothes. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing vain about that. It's beautiful to wake up in the morning, have your pants fit, to wear your clothes, and to feel good about yourself. And I'm not saying that's the only way you're going to feel good about yourself, but it's one of the ways. There's many different ways. So why wouldn't you do what we decided that you should do, or what you decided you should do, to look and feel the way that you want? And here's where the interesting part comes in. Here's where, in my experience, my personal experience, and doing research for many years, especially these last 4 years, there's another reason why you and I don't stick to a plan and achieve that goal. And very often, it has to do with our past. And it could have to do with childhood trauma. And I've shared this with you before on my podcast. Childhood trauma doesn't have to be something as obvious as someone beating you, or abandoning you or cursing at you. It could be subtle. There's new research that shows, and I did this with my children, and I have tremendous guilt about this. I have 3 children who I love more than anything in the world. And my ex-wife and I did this, and I'll speak for myself. I didn't know better. There's something called 1, 2, 3 magic. You want your kid to go to sleep, that was actually how to get them out of a tantrum. But even before that, you would let an infant cry itself to sleep. Well, we now know that when we do that, that infant feels a form of abandonment, because the only way they have to bond in this world and to be safe is to connect with someone, a parent, a caregiver, who's going to literally feed them. They're helpless. We know that when we're born, right? We're one of the only mammals that were born so helpless that if we don't have someone taking care of our every single need, we will perish. And so now what did I do? We had our child, they were crying, and we were told by doctors and books and best-selling authors, let the child cry it out. Well, now we know that that's a form of abandonment. That child is suffering. That's a trauma for them. And if you keep doing that, if I kept doing that with my children, and then compounded on that other behaviors of if they were acting a way that I didn't agree with, this is where the 1, 2, 3 magic comes in. You might have, as a parent, done this too. And again, no judgments. We were doing our best. I really believe that. If my child had a tantrum, we would lock them in their room and we would count to 3, or we would give them 3 chances. 1, 2, 3. By the time we got to 3, you were locked in your room and you stayed there. Sometimes we would hold the door closed until you dealt with your emotions. Now, we're talking about 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds here. You need an adult to let you know what is appropriate behavior. Anyway, we don't have to go into the child psychology. So I have a lot of guilt about that. And I've talked to my children about it. And that's one way to heal through that guilt, and have grief about it, and then have that open connection with your children. So I've done that with them. So the point I'm making is, trauma doesn't have to be obvious. Doesn't have to be you were in a terrible accident, or you saw someone being killed, or a parent or a caregiver physically or emotionally hurt you. It could be as subtle as if you cried, someone didn't comfort you. And then do that over and over and over through your childhood. What happens? You start to become self-reliant, and you realize, I cannot express my emotions. If I express my emotions, someone's going to get upset with me, or I'm going to disappoint someone. So I'm not going to do that. And what happens when you do that, and this is work that I've been studying with Gabor Mate, Gabor Mate. He just released a documentary called The Wisdom of Trauma that I just absolutely recommend to you. If any of what I'm saying is resonating with you, then aside from looking at your nutrition and what's going on there, is check out this documentary and Gabor's work, because it just talks about this, and he says it more eloquently than I do, that if we don't connect to that parent or that caregiver, and we have to suppress these emotions, then we take that into adulthood, and there's always something missing. For me, from my traumatic childhood, there was always something missing. That's why I was so driven to be successful, to do well in school, to study harder than other people, to get advanced degrees, to create a speaking business, to speak to companies like Goldman Sachs and travel around the world and get on TV and Fox and ABC and do all these things in my younger career, get on QVC selling a fitness product. And by the way, at the end of all those events, I felt empty. Why? Because what I was just looking for was acceptance and love that I didn't get from my parents, and I don't blame them. They did the best they could. It just wasn't good enough. And I want to do better for my children. And I'm making amends and repairing the things that I've done to them, repairing those relationships. And I'm just so glad my children can tell me when they're upset with me. And those are all wonderful interactions that we have, when they could actually say, Dad, I'm angry with you. Good, I'm doing a good job. You're allowed to be angry with me. So what does all this have to do with losing weight, Peter? My God, sometimes I do this in my seminars and I'm thinking, am I losing people? Because I just know If you called me up tomorrow and say, let's work together, be my health coach, show me how to eat, I know if I showed you that and showed you everything you needed, the great workout, whatever it was, I know that the chances are you would do it and there was a chance that you would stop. And sometimes when you stop, you come to the conclusion that yes, I am lazy. I am not motivated. There's something wrong with me. I lack willpower. I'm too busy. This costs too much. Those are just excuses that we put up because we feel bad about the failure of something, a goal, a worthy goal that we wanted, that we failed in our minds. Our perception is that we failed at. And then a couple weeks, a month, a year later, we pick up another diet, another exercise fad, another supplement, whatever it is. And then the cycle just keeps repeating itself. So, what I want to share with you, if you want to break that cycle, you have a goal, get a great plan. Work with a coach or a mentor. I don't do this stuff alone. I have a great therapist named Frank. You probably heard me mention him before. I have a great program, a 12-step program, and I have a lot of friends who I connect with on a regular basis that keep me accountable. And I learn and grow from them and they say they learn and grow from me. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And I've separated with love from some of the other people in my life that are well-meaning, but unfortunately our interactions are not beneficial for me, probably not for them as well. So it's mutually beneficial. Sometimes I'm doing them a favor by separating from them with love, whether they know it or not. So let me summarize one more time. You want to lose weight, get a great plan, figure out your BMR, and then track everything you eat for at least 2 weeks. I'm sure if you do that, I know I've seen it time and time again, it will change your life. Then, if you get to an obstacle, if all of a sudden you're not eating that healthy meal, you're not tracking your food, that's a great time to sit quietly in a quiet room and reflect and ask why. Now, the challenge there also is a lot of this is subconscious. Childhood trauma, PTSD, the past. A lot of it we're being triggered, but it's subconscious. That's why we need help. We cannot heal in isolation. That's why we need good therapists, groups like 12-step programs, and mentors, and just groups of family and friends that are like-minded, that get it, that will support us, that will keep us accountable, but will not judge us. Because a lot of this, I needed a therapist to help me understand why I always sabotaged myself in business. For me, it was my career because I had low self-worth. I would get to a certain success level and then something would happen. In my mind, it was just something that happened, but now I know I would sabotage myself because I didn't believe I deserved that success. And it scared the shit out of me, to be honest with you. The more and more successful I got, the more and more quote unquote famous I got, the more scared I got because I felt empty and like a phony. And we talked about imposter syndrome. Listen to my podcast with Jill Mackey, therapist, when we talk about imposter syndrome. And the good thing about all this is we're not alone. Most of us struggle with the same things. Some of us just hide it better than others. And some of us, if we're comfortable, are willing to share it like I am now because of the work with or by people like Gabor Mate and other good people that are really talking authentically about why we really don't do the things that we should do and want to do, and how unfortunately that leads to diseases and illnesses and unhappiness and maybe divorces or failed relationships. I just want to remind you, if you're experiencing any of that, even something as simple as not being able to lose weight, there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And you can have what you want in your life. And it's sometimes just going about it slightly differently. Setting the plan, and then when you hit a wall, reflecting and then reaching out and getting help. Now, one of the ways that you can get help is I'm going to offer a nutrition class. It's going to be a 90-minute or 2-hour class. I'm going to share every single thing I can think of that can help you with nutrition, because at the end of the day, we absolutely have to eat well. We see it's directly tied to whether we'll develop diseases. and autoimmune. All the diseases that I mentioned earlier in this podcast are preventable. Science is showing us that. The other thing too is if we continue to suppress our emotions, there's plenty of solid science that shows that that suppression of emotions, not expressing ourselves, being people pleasers, always wanting other people to be happy and to feel valuable for them, that again comes from low self-worth. And if I do something for people, or if I'm famous or amazing at something, I bake well and I give it to everyone, then then I'll be loved, then I'll be accepted, and it'll fill that hole. But guess what? You probably know this already. It doesn't fill that hole. That's the unfortunate thing. So I'm going to offer a nutrition class. I'll give you some information after this podcast on how you can take a look at it. And if you're interested, I really hope you join me, because I am just so frustrated seeing my friends and people that I care about starting diets and ending them, starting fitness fads and ending them. If you want to get to the end of it, or if you want to really just address it once and for all, let's get an amazing plan. Let's see how the healthiest people in the world eat. The good thing is they're not vegans. If you are an omnivore like me, that's great news. That's exciting news with all this news about being vegan. If you're a vegan, good for you if that works for you. But you don't have to be. And we'll answer questions like, should I eat gluten? What's with eggs? Do I eat eggs? Do they have to be organic? Like simple things like that that I take for granted, that you might have questions to. I want to address all of those during that program. So I do hope you join me for that and get more information. And I also want to thank you again for tuning in and to sticking it out until the end. I appreciate it. I hope you find this valuable. If you find my podcasts or any of my posts valuable, please share them with others. I'd love to connect with you, and I'd love to connect to the people in your life that you care about. Until next time, I'm Peter.